Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make Snickerdoodle cupcakes. Hey Sugar Spun bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. These Snickerdoodle cupcakes are a spin on one of my most favorite Christmas cookies. They have that signature Snickerdoodle tang, and I think you are going to love them as much as I do. Let's go ahead and get started. Now the first thing that you want to do is get your oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now let's start with our cupcake base. For today's recipe, we are going to be using a blend of butter and oil, starting with 1/3 cup of softened unsalted butter. We'll add 1 cup of granulated sugar and just 1/4 cup of either canola or vegetable oil. This blend of oil and butter is so key to making these cupcakes both flavorful and nice and moist. Now for today's recipe, you could absolutely use your stand mixer if you have one. I'm just going to be using my electric mixer. Now we'll go ahead and cream together the butter, sugar, and oil until everything is really creamy and well combined. You want to make sure the butter is really well creamed, especially and that there are no lumps of butter remaining. All right, this is looking pretty good. So let's move on to our next ingredient. And for that, we will need 2 large eggs. Now you always want to crack these in a separate bowl. And this is exactly why this egg is a little bit more fragile. So I got a little bit of shell in there, but it's going to be much easier to fish this out of this separate bowl than out of our cupcake batter. It'll be easy to lose it there. All right, add your 2 shell-free eggs. And we'll also add 1½ teaspoons of vanilla extract. And we'll use our mixer again just to stir everything together until it's completely combined. All right, now at this point you are done with your electric mixer. We're not going to need that anymore. We can set our wet ingredients aside, and you're going to need a separate bowl for your dry ingredients. For today's recipe, I like to use cake flour, which gives the cupcakes a nicer, lighter crumb, helps keep them nice and tender. We're going to be using 1 2/3 cups of cake flour. We'll also add 3/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now this is obviously a very important ingredient in Snickerdoodles. It is a very important ingredient in our Snickerdoodle cupcakes as well. This is what is going to give them that signature Snickerdoodle flavor. Unfortunately, I don't have a suggestion for a good substitute for cream of tartar. Now for a great cinnamon undertone, we'll be adding 3/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon baking soda, and then just a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And we'll whisk these ingredients together until they're nicely combined. All right, now before we begin combining our wet and dry ingredients, you are going to want to make sure that you measure out 2/3 cup of buttermilk. Now, as many of you know, when we're using this traditional creaming method for making cupcakes, it's very important that you don't overmix the batter or you could end up with really dense, dry cupcakes. Now, there are a few things you can do to help reduce the risk of overmixing your batter, and one of those things is to alternate adding your flour or your dry ingredients and your buttermilk. It just helps the batter come together a little bit more uniformly without overworking it. So I like to add my dry ingredients in about 3 parts. So I'll just add about 1/3 of that now. Just eyeball it and just stir this gently using a spatula. Do not use an electric mixer at this point or you'll pretty much definitely overdo it. And once the flour is mostly absorbed into the batter, we will take our buttermilk and just add about 1/2 of that buttermilk. And we will just repeat alternating with these ingredients until we've added all of our flour and all of our buttermilk. Now when you're finished, you do want to have a nice, pretty uniform looking batter. You want it to be pretty smooth, but you also do not want to overdo it. So today's recipe makes 12 cupcakes. So I have a 12 count cupcake tin or muffin tin or whatever you want to call it. And I've lined mine with paper liners, and we will just evenly divide the batter into our prepared tin. I like to use an ice cream scoop to do this, just makes the job a little bit cleaner. And you do want to use all of your batter. All right, now we'll take these over to our 350 degrees Fahrenheit preheated oven where they're going to need to bake for about 16 to 18 minutes. When the cupcakes are finished baking, they should appear dry on top, and if you insert a toothpick in the center, they should preferably come out with a few moist crumbs, or the toothpick, if the toothpick is completely dry, then you know they're finished as well. As you can see with this one, I have a little bit of a crumb there. It's not wet batter, so this is perfect. I'm going to let these cool. Now you do not want to put any frosting on these cupcakes until they're completely cool, otherwise it's just going to melt off. But once your cupcakes have cooled, we can go ahead and start preparing our frosting. I absolutely love this frosting. It is a hybrid of classic buttercream and cream cheese frosting, and it has a very nice cinnamon sugar flavor that you are going to love and just complements the cupcakes perfectly. Now to start, you are going to need 3/4 cup of unsalted butter, and of course this should be softened. We'll also be adding 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, and for just about all of my recipes, you always want to make sure you're using a full fat brick style cream cheese. You don't want to use the spreadable kind that's available in the tubs. And then for a nice depth of flavor, I like to add 2 tablespoons of firmly packed light brown sugar. We'll just use our electric mixer to cream everything together until the butter and cream cheese are really nice and creamy and everything's well combined. All right, this is looking pretty good. So for today's recipe, we are going to need 4 cups of powdered sugar, and we are just going to gradually add this to our butter and cream cheese mixture. Now, anytime you're adding powdered sugar, you always want to start on a low speed and gradually increase the speed to high. Otherwise, you're going to get powdered sugar everywhere. Ask me how I know. Now, you also want to make sure you're adding the sugar slowly, because if you add it too quickly, it can just kind of overwhelm your mixer. It can make the frosting really, really dry, and it's just going to be more of an arm workout to get everything nicely combined. So just take it slow. Now, periodically, you do want to make sure you grab a spatula and just scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl so that way you know everything is getting very well combined. All right, once you have all of your powdered sugar added, we can go ahead and add some vanilla extract and cinnamon for a really great flavor. We'll add 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and we'll just stir these in. Now, personally, I feel like this frosting needs a little bit something extra to help lighten it up. So at this point, I like to take 1 tablespoon of heavy cream. Though if you don't have heavy cream, you could use whole milk instead. And then we will beat this on high speed for about 15 to 30 seconds until that cream is completely incorporated. Now, this is my favorite part. I always like to do a quick taste test. And at this point, you'll decide if you want to add a little bit of salt or not. I leave this as an option because people have different preferences when they're making frosting, but generally I find that the frosting is a little bit too sweet at this point. So to deepen the flavor and help cut some of the sweetness, I like to add just a pinch of salt. This is just 1/4 teaspoon. And of course, you need to make sure you stir that in thoroughly. All right, now once your cupcakes have cooled and your frosting is ready, all that's left to do is assemble them. So my cupcakes are nice and cool. I have put my frosting in a piping bag that I have fitted with my favorite piping tip, which is the Ateco 848 piping tip. I'll make sure I leave a link to that in the description for you. And we'll just go ahead and decorate our cupcakes. And this recipe makes a generous amount of frosting so that you can do a lot of frosting on your cupcakes or just a little bit. Obviously, I am going for the cupcake with a lot of frosting on it. And that is how easy it is to make these super cute Snickerdoodle cupcakes. I really think you are going to love these, and if you try them out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is good.